For years, I was the daughter who stayed silent, the one who smiled for the cameras while my heart was breaking behind the scenes. We were the face of the perfect family, but that perfection was a lie built on secrets, control, and a total lack of boundaries. Today, I'm finally standing in my own truth. From the moment I walked away from the Tontatown compound to the day I held my sister Jana's secret baby Archie in my arms, it's been a journey of healing I never thought possible. I'm Jill Dillard. I'm done counting the cost of my father's choices. For the next 70 minutes, I'm opening up about the reality of my sister's new lives, the fall of the empire, and why Jana's miracle baby is the light at the end of a very dark tunnel. This isn't the story TLC filmed. This is the story we lived. Let's talk about what it really means to find freedom. Growing up as one of the oldest girls in a family of 19, my identity was entirely wrapped up in being a caretaker. I wasn't just a sister, I was a second mother, a teacher, and a shield for the younger ones. We were taught that our value came from how much we could give and how little we could ask for in return. For the longest time, I thought that was normal. I thought the pressure I felt in my chest every time a camera was pointed at us was just godly conviction. It took leaving the compound and years of therapy to realize that I was carrying a burden that was never meant for a child to bear. Watching my sister Jana find her way has been one of the most emotional experiences of my life. For years, she was the stay-at-home daughter, the one everyone assumed would never leave or have a life of her own. But Jana is stronger than anyone gives her credit for. When she married Stephen and moved to Nebraska, she finally chose herself, and then Archie arrived. Holding that little boy, my nephew, Archie Gerald Wissmann, on January 23rd was like seeing a miracle in person. He represents a new beginning for her, one built on a foundation of love and choice, not obligation. People ask why Jana kept Archie a secret for nearly a month. In our family, nothing was ever private. Our births were broadcast to millions. Our first moments as mothers were content for a television show. For Jana to have those first few weeks alone with her husband and her son, without the pressure of the Duggar machine or public scrutiny, was a revolutionary act of self-care. She wanted Archie to know her voice, not the voice of a producer. She deserved that peace. We all did. It's hard to watch the news about the big house and the financial collapse of what my father built. But to be honest, I saw the cracks years ago. When Derek and I asked for our fair share of the money we earned filming those shows, we were treated like enemies. We realized then that the ministry was really a business and the children were the primary assets. Seeing the foreclosure signs now isn't a surprise. It's the inevitable result of a system built on exploitation rather than integrity. You can only ignore the truth for so long before the debt comes due. The most beautiful part of this season is the way my sisters and I are reconnecting on our own terms. We don't have to check with the authority to see each other anymore. Whether it's visiting Jana in Nebraska or seeing Anna's new life with her puppies, we are building a sisterhood that is based on genuine support. We are all survivors of the same storm, just at different stages of finding land. Seeing Jana as a mother to Archie reminds me that even after the deepest pain, there is always room for a new, beautiful story to begin. For a long time, the biggest rule in our house was what happens in this family stays in this family. We were taught that telling the truth was a form of betrayal, a way of dishonoring our parents, but I've learned that silence isn't honor, it's a hiding place for hurt. When I started writing my book, Counting the Cost, it wasn't to attack my family. It was to reclaim my own voice. I had to stop being the perfect daughter so I could finally be a healthy person. Seeing my sisters now, like Jana finding her own peace or Jinger living her life in LA, realize we're all slowly breaking that covenant of silence. We're learning that our stories belong to us, not to a brand. People often look at the lifestyle we had, the big house, the travel, the fame, and think we were lucky. But that big house in Tontatown was often a golden cage. Every room was a set for a scene. Every conversation was monitored. We were living in a fishbowl where the water was being controlled by someone else's hand. Even now, seeing the bank moving in on those properties, there's a part of me that feels a sense of relief for the siblings still there. When the walls of the empire fall, you finally have to step outside and see the real world for what it is. It's scary, but it's where the healing actually begins. My relationship with my father, Jim Bob, is complicated to say the least. There hasn't been a grand reconciliation because reconciliation requires an honest audit of the past. You can't fix a relationship if you won't admit where the foundation was cracked. It hurts to see the financial fallout and the public humiliation he's facing, but I also see it as a reckoning. You cannot spend years controlling others and expect to remain in control forever. I pray for him, but I've also had to build a very tall fence around my own family to keep his influence from repeating the same cycles with my boys. If you look at the photos Jana and Stephen posted of baby Archie, you'll see a smile on Jana's face that I haven't seen in years. It's not that pageant smile we were trained to give the cameras. It's the look of a woman who finally has something that is truly hers. She isn't a sister mom anymore. She is a mother in Nebraska. She doesn't have to worry about the Duggar name being the first thing people think of. She's just Jana Wissmann, Archie's mom. That simple shift is the greatest gift she could have ever given herself and her son. We can't choose the family we are born into, but we can choose the legacy we leave behind. I want my sons to grow up in a home where they are allowed to have feelings, to ask questions, to disagree with me without fear. I want them to know that the love isn't conditional on performance. Seeing my sisters find their footing, whether it's through starting a business or simply moving away, shows me that we are successfully changing the narrative. The Duggar empire might be collapsing, but the Duggar children are finally rising. We are more than our past. And we are certainly more than 19 kids and counting. During the darkest years in Tontatown, my journals were my only safe space. I had to hide them because in our house, privacy was seen as a sign of rebellion. I wrote about the confusion of being told we were blessed while feeling so deeply controlled and exploited. Looking back at those entries now, I see a young woman who was desperately trying to make sense of a world that didn't allow for questions. Those journals were the seeds of my freedom. They reminded me that my thoughts were mine alone, even when my time and labor were being sold to a network. The moment I finally decided to leave the IBLP, the high control religious organization our family was built on, wasn't a single event, but a slow awakening. I started comparing the orulas we lived by with the actual grace found in the Bible, and they didn't match up. I realized that the umbrella of protection was actually an umbrella of fear used to keep us dependent on our Father. Walking away from those teachings felt like finally stepping out into the sunlight after a lifetime in a dark room. It cost me my place in the family business, but it gave me back my soul. Watching Anna start her own puppy business and move into her own home has been so encouraging to see. For years, and she was the one most trapped by the expectations of the family name. I know what it's like to feel like you have to stay for the sake of an image, but Anna is proving that you can build a life even when the person you're tied to makes choices that destroy everything. My biggest hope for her is that she realizes she doesn't need the Duggar name to be a good mother or a successful woman. Her independence is a victory for every woman in this family. Seeing the bank seized signs at the properties I once called home is a surreal experience. It's a physical manifestation of the internal collapse that happened years ago. My father built an empire on the idea of being debt-free, but he forgot that spiritual and emotional debts eventually have to be paid too. The loss of the big house isn't just a financial failure. It's the end of a brand that was built on an unsustainable foundation. It's a hard lesson, but perhaps it's the only way for the cycle of control to truly break. Jana's life in Nebraska with Stephen and little Archie is what I wish for all my siblings. A new normal that is quiet, private, and free. When I visit her, we don't talk about camera angles or press releases. We talk about diaper changes, garden soil, and what we're making for dinner. It sounds mundane, but to us, it's extraordinary. Archie will never have to grow up wondering if he's being good enough for a television audience. He is loved just because he exists, and that is the greatest legacy Jana could ever give him. For decades, my family's name was synonymous with a specific brand of faith and fertility, but the reality was that we were a product being sold. The big house wasn't just a home, it was a production set where our privacy was the currency. People often ask me if I miss the fame, and the answer is a resounding no. Fame was the cage that kept us from knowing who we actually were. Seeing the financial collapse of that empire now in 2026 is painful, but it's also a reckoning that was long overdue. You cannot build a lasting legacy on the exploitation of your own children's lives. I've learned that a small, quiet life built on honesty is worth infinitely more than $1 million mansion built on secrets. One of the hardest parts of my journey was realizing that the version of God I was taught was tied to a system of control. I was taught that God's favor was linked to my father's umbrella of protection. And if I stepped outside of it, I was stepping into danger. But when Durick and I finally walked away, I didn't find danger. I found a God who is much bigger than any religious organization. I found grace that doesn't require a camera crew to witness it. Now, when I see my sisters like Jana and Jinger finding their own faith paths, it fills me with so much hope. We are moving from a performance-based faith to something that is actually real and restorative. I know there are people listening to this who feel exactly how I felt 10 years ago, trapped, confused, and afraid to ask the questions that are burning in their hearts. To you, I want to say your intuition is not a sin. Your desire for boundaries is not dishonoring your parents. It is okay to walk away from a system that hurts you, even if that system uses the name of God to keep you there. The path to freedom is narrow, and it is incredibly lonely at first. But I promise you, the air is so much clearer on the other side. You are worth more than the role you were forced to play. When I look at my 3 boys, I am so grateful they will never know the pressure of being a Duggar child. They won't grow up with producers telling them what to say or a patriarch telling them who to be. They are growing up in a house where we talk about our feelings, where we apologize when we're wrong, and where they are allowed to be individuals. Breaking the generational cycles of trauma is the hardest work I've ever done. But it's the most important. Seeing them play with their cousin Archie without a single camera in sight is the ultimate proof that we made the right choice. As we close out this story, I want to thank everyone who has supported us through the years, especially those who read my book and shared their own stories of survival. The Duggar empire might be falling, and the big house might be empty, but the children who grew up there are finally finding their way home. We are survivors, we are healers, and we are finally truly free. My name is Jill Dillard, and for the first time in my life, I'm not just a number in a family line. I'm just me, and that is more than enough. Thank you for listening.